Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1887B, and today's date is June 7th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Drip, 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 The Great Awakening. This is the storm. Father's Day is right around the corner, and one of the best gifts you can give Dad this holiday season is the Patriot flashlight. So what do you get with the Patriot flashlight? Well, you never have to waste money on batteries. It's solar powered. It lights up the darkest of nights. It has life-saving emergency strobe lights. You can charge your phone anywhere. Users have reported this flashlight to be an all-in-one lifesaver. Patriot flashlight is the perfect gift for Dad this holiday. Limited supplies last, and this is the very last chance to get yours at a discount before they sell out. Use code X20 and get 20% off the Patriot flashlight. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, if you've been watching, you have been noticing that there is panic out there. The deep state is panicking, and they're trying to control the narrative. They know what's coming, and the Patriots, they are dripping the information out slowly but surely, connecting all the dots. And I know that Q in the past has said, this is the Great Awakening. Yes, it was the Great Awakening for those who are following Q. This is the broader Great Awakening for the public. The information now is flowing out into the public. Yes, I know the deep state, the mainstream media, I know they're trying to block as much as they possibly can. But this information is now flowing out into the public arena. This is the Great Awakening. And what we see happening with all these social media sites, with everything else, this is the storm. The storm is the confusion. The storm is everything that is happening right now. And it might seem like, oh, this is awful, this is terrible, this is not going the way we thought it was going to go. But we knew that the deep state, we knew that they weren't just going to sit back and just say, hey, you know what? You caught us. We did bad, and we shouldn't be doing this. No, you knew that they were never going to give an inch. You knew to the very end they were going to fight. They were going to make it seem like nothing is wrong. That those people who are looking at spying, those people that are looking at the FISA applications, those people that are looking at all of this stuff, they're crazy because we did everything by the books. Well, it's turning out that they didn't. It's turning out that the Russians weren't really Russians. They were informants. And we're starting to get all this information to come out right now. And they are panicking. You see the panic in certain areas. They're not just going to come out and start crying and screaming and things like that. They're always going to stick to the Russian story. Because without the Russian story, they have nothing. Why were they spying then? Why were they surveilling? See, without the Russian story, everything falls apart. So they're going to have to stick to the Russian story to the very end. Even though Mueller came out and said there was no Russian collusion, even though there was no obstruction, even though there was nothing like that, if you notice, they have to stick to the Russian story. Otherwise, all of this doesn't work. All of it then doesn't make sense to what they were saying. And this is why there is panic. This is why there's confusion. This is why we're in the storm. And we're starting to see a lot of these individuals that have been, very vocal and out there calling out Trump and look at this, look at that. These individuals, well, it seems that there are investigations going on with a number of them. I mean, look at Elijah Cummings and his wife. With the different organizations they have, the IRS is looking into that. We have Representative Omar. She was found guilty of 6 campaign violations and ordered to pay fines. This is coming out of Fox 9. U.S. Representative Omar must personally pay a $500 civil fine to the state for violating a campaign finance law. In addition, Omar must reimburse her political campaign $3,469 for improperly used campaign funds. 5 times Omar's campaign improperly paid hotel or travel expenses for Omar to attend out-of-state events in 2017. The board found. In other cases, the board found Omar's campaign had paid for Omar's immigration records and 2 years of tax returns without justifying their benefit to her campaign. And people are digging in deeper and deeper, and they're finding out more and more information. And soon you're going to see other individuals get caught up in all of this. And you're going to see a lot of different campaign violations. You're going to say, you know something, we need your records. And a lot of these people, instead of being on offense, they're going to be trying to defend everything that they've done. Now, very interestingly, the Department of Justice has released the FBI Agent Report 302, written after their interview of Michael Flynn on January 24, 2017. Now, for some reason, within the Department of Justice release of the report, they are continuing to redact the name of Joe Pienka, and this could be due to ongoing employment or other reasons. It's worth noting, according to Mark Meadows, the Office of Inspector General Michael Horowitz has interviewed Joe Pienka extensively, and Congress, in the past, they attempted to gain the testimony from Pienka, but they were blocked by the FBI and Rod Rosenstein. Now, FBI agent Joseph Pienka was never interviewed by the Joint House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, Goodlatte and Gowdy. The reason, as explained by Meadows, was simple. Pienka was on Weissman and Mueller's special counsel team. Congress was not allowed to interfere in the Mueller probe. In hindsight, this looks like Weissman and Mueller and Rosenstein strategically used the investigation to shield Pienka from all of this. So let's go back to Michael Flynn's, the 302s, and what they just released. Prosecutor Brandon Van Grack, he filed a cover letter attempting to explain the reason for the Flynn interview on January 24th, 2017, and a delay in the official filing of the interview notes, the 302, on February 15, 2017, and another edit on May 31st, 2017. To explain the FBI delay, Van Grack claimed the 302 report inadvertently had a header saying draft document deliberative material. And he used this, but we know there was a deliberative process in place, seemingly all about how to best position the narrative, because we can see the deliberations in text messages between Page and Strzok. The text messages, the conversation, well, they were going back and forth on how to present this. The Michael Flynn 302 was officially entered into the record on February 15, 2017. It was a deliberative document from the outset. Thanks to Strzok and Page text messages, we know the 2018 cover letter from the special counsel is misleading. The February 15, 2017 date was the day after McCabe approved it, 3 weeks after the FBI interview. May 17, 2017, Robert Mueller was assigned as special counsel. Then the 302 report was re-entered on May 31st, 2017, removing the header, paving the way for Mueller's team to use the content therein. And again, we know that a lot of this information was massaged, there were omissions, and it made it look like everything was happening in a certain way, the way Mueller and Weissman wanted it to happen. And we're starting to realize they did this on purpose to try to create this narrative of either Russian collusion, which I think was going to be very difficult to prove, or obstruction. Now, Judge Emmett Sullivan, he ordered the public release of the November 2017 audio recordings from Trump attorney John Dowd's voicemail to Flynn's lawyer. Now, recall that on Friday evening, deep state federal prosecutors released the full transcript from Trump's attorney to General Michael Flynn's attorney. Mueller and Weissman used the phone call as evidence that Trump was attempting to interfere with the special counsel Russia collusion witch hunt. After the call was released, several internet sleuths compared the call transcripts to the transcript published in the Mueller report. Robert Mueller and Andrew Weissman, they manipulated the transcript and lied about the call. This is more proof the deep state used any means possible, including lying to get Trump. Now, Judge Sullivan is ordering the public release of Flynn's lawyer's voicemail to Trump's lawyer. Flynn fired his lawyers and replaced them with a high-profile lawyer ahead of sentencing. Now, a reporter asked Joe DiGenova a question. Are you going to represent General Flynn? Joe D said, we are not at liberty to discuss. Now that's very interesting. Now, Judicial Watch, they released documents from the U.S. Department of Justice in response to a Freedom of Information Act request showing the removal of Bruce Orr from the position of Associate Attorney General in 2017, his transfer from Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force to International Affairs in 2018, and that Orr received a total of $42,520 in performance bonuses during the Trump-Russia investigation. Now, Orr's bonus nearly doubled from $14,250, which was received in November 2015, to $28,000 in 2016. The released documents were notification of personnel action and requests for personnel action forms that were the Freedom of Information Act requested by Judicial Watch in January 2018. The documents show that on November 13, 2016, Orr was given a performance award of $28,000. This was during the time of his deep involvement in the highly controversial Justice Department surveillance of the Trump presidential campaign. The bonus was nearly double what he received in 2015. Right now, Judicial Watch has about 5 current lawsuits pursuing information on Bruce Orr. So it looks like, from what we're seeing here, that this might have been a payoff to Bruce Orr to keep doing what he's doing. And Judicial Watch is gathering this information. Now, Mark Meadows, he dropped a bomb where he said most of the information in the Mueller report is filled with multiple omissions, inaccuracies, and the deeper we dive, the more problems we find. Now, the question is, why is he saying that? Well, he's saying that because John Solomon just came out with a new report. And every time this new information comes out, it shows there's a problem with the Mueller report. And they're doing this on purpose. They're going to show that the Mueller report is complete and utter garbage, that it's fake, phony, and false, and the facts of what really happened do not match what Mueller is saying. Now, in the Mueller report, Ukrainian businessman Konstantin Kilimnik, the so-called Russian who Paul Manafort shared internal polling data with, isn't a Russian. He's actually a sensitive intelligence source for the U.S. State Department who informed on Ukrainian and Russian matters. John Solomon reviewed hundreds of pages of government documents proving Kilimnik is indeed a State Department intel source. Even worse, Mueller possessed these documents since 2018. Now, this is a very important piece of information which was omitted from the Mueller report, and it seems that Meadows is right on target. John Solomon of the Hill. The incomplete portrayal of Kilimnik is so important to Mueller's overall narrative that it is raised in the opening of his report. The FBI assesses Kilimnik to have ties to Russian intelligence. Mueller's team wrote on page 6, putting a sinister light on every contact Kilimnik had with Manafort, the former Trump campaign chairman. What it doesn't state is that Kilimnik was a sensitive intelligence source for a state going back to at least 2013, while he was still working for Manafort, according to the FBI and State Department memos that which he reviewed. Kilimnik was not just any run-of-the-mill source. He interacted with the chief political officer at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, sometimes meeting several times a week to provide information on the Ukraine government. He relayed messages back to Ukraine's leaders and delivered written reports to U.S. officials via emails that stretched on for thousands of words. The memos show the FBI knew all of this well before the Mueller investigation concluded. But it gets worse. Mueller's report stated that Kilimnik delivered a peace plan to the Trump campaign for setting the Crimea conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But there's just one problem with all of this. The State Department emails reviewed by John Solomon, they revealed this exact peace plan was delivered to the Obama administration in May of 2016 during Kilimnik's visit to Washington, D.C. Kilimnik requested the meeting to deliver in person a peace plan for Ukraine that Manafort acknowledged the special counsel's office was a backdoor way for Russia to control part of eastern Ukraine. And this is from the Mueller report. But state emails show Kilmenick first delivered a version of his peace plan in May 2016 to the Obama administration during a visit to Washington. Kasanoff, his former handler at the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine, had been promoted to a top policy position at state, and the two met for dinner on May 5th, 2016. The day after the dinner, Kilmenick sent an email to Kasanoff's official state email address recounting the peace plan they had discussed the night before. So Kilmenick's delivery of the peace plan to the Trump campaign in August of 2016 was flagged by Mueller as potentially nefarious, but its earlier delivery to the Obama administration wasn't even mentioned. Remember what Mark Meadows said: there are many lies, omissions, and inaccuracies in the Mueller report. And what they're going to show each time they drip this information out is that the Mueller report is complete and utter garbage. The investigation should have never been. There was nothing there. It's going to show that Mueller never investigated any of this, because if he did investigate, he would have found all this information. But we already know that he knew all this information, and he was never going to investigate. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following: Mueller didn't just mislead the public when he described Kilmenick as someone with ties to Russian intelligence when he knew he was a U.S. informant. He also deceived when he described Mifsud as someone who had connections to Russia, when in fact he was a Western intelligence asset. And if you notice now, as we step back a little bit, all these Russians are turning out to be, intelligence informants, working either for the CIA, the FBI, or both. Very interesting. So slowly but surely, the entire scandal is being brought out into the open. The Patriots are drip feeding the public. This is why the deep state is now taking action to shut down, silence as many people as possible. They're going to try to control the narrative. It will not work. Every time they try to control things, people search for the truth, and the truth always comes out. You cannot keep the truth down. Yes, you can feed everyone propaganda. Yes, you can lie. But once the facts come out, once the truth comes out, those fall apart with a snap of a finger. But remember, the deep state, the House Democrats, they're trying everything they possibly can to stop this. Now, the House Democrats officially introduced a resolution to hold Attorney General Bill Barr and former White House counsel Don McGahn in contempt for defying congressional subpoenas. Now, the contempt resolution will give House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler the opportunity to go to court to seek civil enforcement of the subpoena to force Barr to turn over Mueller's unredacted report and the underlying intelligence. They really don't want the report. What they want is the underlying intelligence, the other information, and they want to comb through it to find the obstruction part. That's what they're really looking for, because really they have the unredacted report. Barr presented this to them. Certain Democrats can read it. Nadler never did. The only part that's hidden is the grand jury part. They don't want that. That's not important. They want the information that Mueller was gathering, and they want to comb through it to use it for obstruction, then to take that and use it for impeachment, because that's what they were expecting. So the House is going to vote on the resolution on Monday. Now, this doesn't mean that something's going to happen to Barr, that all this information is going to be turned over to them, because this is just a vote out of the House. That's it. We have to see what happens next. Just like when they say, we're going to charge you with contempt. Okay, charged with contempt. Then what? Now, what's very interesting, and this is why they're all reacting like this, is because, according to Department of Justice sources, U.S. Attorney John Durham's investigation on the origins of the Russia collusion probe say he is very dialed in. Any criminal actions uncovered in the investigation will be handled by Durham. Now, U.S. Attorney John Durham is examining documents generated by interagency fusion cell that former CIA Chief John Brennan set up in mid-2016. This suggests a broader interagency effort is underway. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. Breaking. According to Maine Department of Justice sources, Durham's portfolio for looking into the provenance of CH includes examining docs generated by interagency fusion cell Brennan set up in mid-2016 on Russian election interference, plus pre-election briefings Steele gave to UK intelligence. Durham is specifically reviewing the FISA warrant obtained by the FBI to surveil former Trump aide Carter Page, as well as general issues relating to the surveillance during the 2016 campaign and matters following the FISA process. So Paul Sperry said, well, wait a minute. If they're looking at the FISA warrant obtained by the FBI to surveil Page, then we might have a problem. Paul Sperry tweeted out the following. If the IG finds the FBI Department of Justice violated Carter Page's civil rights by spying on him without probable cause between October 2016 and September 2017, then that means they violated everybody's rights who communicated with Page via voice, text, email between October 2016 and 2017, including journalists. Like we said before, the drip feeding of all this information is making the deep state panic. This is being done on purpose. The patriots are trying to wake up the general public by feeding them this information over and over and over. Even though the mainstream media might not be reporting on it or they might be countering it, people have questions because things aren't making sense anymore. And the whole Russian collusion thing went down the drain. The obstruction thing went down the drain. And something is wrong here. And people, they know when something's wrong. You feel it. When things don't make sense and they're trying to tell you this is the way it is, you know from your internal workings what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I mean, if someone came up to you and said 2 + 2 is 5, you say, well, no, something doesn't make sense here. Because when I take, 2 matchsticks and 2 matchsticks and I put them all together, it's 4. How are you telling me it's 5? People know because we have this internal instinct to distinguish between what's right, what's wrong, and what's truth and what is a lie. It might take a little while to get there. Some people find it a lot faster. Other people take a little bit more time. But when the propaganda, the brainwashing, and everything else starts wearing off, people start to wake up. And when they start to wake up, they ask a lot of questions. Yes, they might go through, being angry. But once anger goes away, they start saying, well, I want to know why. I want to know more. What's going on here? Let me do a little research. Let me find the truth. This is the Great Awakening. Now, Judicial Watch, they are continually digging into the Hillary Clinton email scandal. And they announced today that it uncovered 422 pages of FBI documents showing evidence of a cover-up. And there were discussions related to the Clinton email system within Plot River Networks. Now, the new documents uncovered by Judicial Watch also contain Clinton's 2009 classified information non-disclosure agreement bearing her signature. Documents show Platte River Network's use of BleachBit on the Clinton server. The BleachBit program was downloaded from a vendor called SourceForge at 11:42 a.m. on March 31st, 2015, according to a computer event log, and over the next half hour was used to delete the files on Clinton's server. And he is gathering all this information, putting everything together, and he is finding out quite a bit. Now, down at the border, we know that Trump is telling the Mexican president, listen, if you do not do what we want, we'll be placing tariffs on Mexico. June 10th is 5%. July 1st, 10%. August 1st, 15% increase. September 1st, 20% increase. October 1st, 25% increase. But right now, both sides, they're trying to work this out. And of course, they're not just going to say, okay, we believe you. They want to see action. They want to see the Mexican government control the borders and turn people back. So he's not going to let up on this. When I say him, I'm talking about Trump. So the Mexican officials and the U.S. officials said the countries are negotiating. They're negotiating a sweeping plan to overhaul asylum rules across the region, a move that would require Central Americans to seek refuge in the first foreign country they set foot upon after fleeing their homeland. Now, under such a plan, the United States would swiftly deport Guatemalan asylum seekers who set foot on U.S. soil to Mexico, and the United States would send Honduran and Salvadorian asylum applicants to Guatemala, whose government held talks with acting Homeland Security Secretary last week. Central American migrants who express a fear of death or torture if sent back to their home countries would be interviewed by a U.S. asylum officer to determine if the chances of such harm were more likely than not. Now, Vice President Pence was speaking to reporters in Pennsylvania, and he says he appreciates the position of the Mexican government, but he says, listen, we need to see this done. So unless the administration sees measurable results, the tariffs will go into effect as scheduled. And again, we discussed this yesterday. There is a border crisis. Now, coming out of a new report from the Homeland Security, we see that in ex-ISIS terrorists, they explained how the terrorist group wanted to send members into the United States, and they were going to try to hit the financial system to bring down the economy. And this is why people need to be vetted. This is why they need to go to the proper port of entry, because you don't know who anyone is, and they need to be looked at. They need to go through a vetting process so we know who's who, because just like the Homeland Security report said, this person, they're saying that someone was going to come in here and they were going to do harm to the American financial system. Now, it looks like the whole entire neocon regime change in Venezuela, it looks like that has fallen apart. And it seems that there's peace talks happening. Yes, we're going to see failure in peace talks. Then they're going to come back together. But we can see that in Oslo, they began the peace talks back in May. This is just the beginning. Yes, they will fail, they'll regroup, they'll come back together, but at least something has started. Now, Maduro recently disclosed that they held secret talks for 2 or 3 months already. Then we sat down at the negotiation table in Norway. And he says, I would like to achieve peace agreement for Venezuela. So he said, we are ready to hold parliamentary elections. The country wants the composition of the National Assembly to be renewed. This entire situation has been primed. All Trump needs to do right now is say, you know something? Maybe we should have an open dialogue with Maduro. And if Maduro would like to, I'm open to it and he can give me a call. I mean, isn't this what happened with North Korea? Isn't this what is happening out in Iran? And it seems like this was set up perfectly to have this happen. Now, very interestingly, we know the deep state, they never wanted Putin and Trump to get together. Russia is their backstory. They're using it because they have nothing else. And once Trump starts to speak to Putin and they become friendly and they agree on certain issues, well, this is going to hurt their story because Putin, Russia, they're supposed to be the evil ones. So when Trump and Putin met and they recently talked, Putin said that his recent talks with the American leader inspired certain optimism. He said, Donald understands how much the United States and other countries spend on armaments. This money could be diverted to other purposes, and I fully agree with him. He said that global security depends largely on negotiations between U.S. and Russia, and Putin is encouraging other nuclear states to join the discussion. And Putin is saying that we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Trump said the conversation was long and very good, and we are getting along with Russia. And guess what? That is a good thing. Russia does not want war. Trump does not want war. They want peace. And this is something the deep state can't have, because once there is peace and there's a relationship between Trump and Putin, guess what? their entire story falls apart. Because remember what they really wanted. They wanted Russia as the enemy. Russia has been interfering in the election. Russia has been doing this. Russia's been doing that. And once this happens, everything that they've been talking about in the past falls apart. Because we've already seen from the Mueller report, there's no collusion with Russia. There's no obstruction. Now we're seeing that the Mueller report is not even truthful. They omitted things. They didn't really investigate. And now facts are coming out to counter the Mueller report. The next step is to show the Mueller report is garbage. The next step after that is to show that what really happened. And this is what all the investigations are about. The deep state, they have nothing left that they can use to try to cover this up. Yes, they can try to control the narrative. Yes, they can silence people. Yes, they can do all of this. But the truth, the facts, once they're released, there's nothing they can do. Yes, they can try events. They've done it in the past. But again, the truth will be out there. People are going to wake up to the truth. The storm is what we are watching right now. This confusion, the panic, the truth coming out. You see this before you get the really nice weather and everything calms down. So right now, we're in the middle of the storm, and it's going to intensify as we get closer and closer to all this information coming out. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.